couple of videos ago, as I looked ahead to the remaining verses in this text, I felt I was running out of steam, running out of interest in continuing with this. Perhaps it's not worth seeing it to the end, especially since there seems to be a declining quality in the verses themselves, as if some other hand has come in and taken over. But I'm still uploading these videos. I'm still editing and uploading them. And when I upload them, I remember once again. I remember how unique these teachings are. If I thought anybody else was teaching this stuff, I wouldn't bother. There's a feeling sometimes that these teachings are rather prosaic, inspiring a certain so what response. At the same time, though, there is a sense that these teachings are of cosmic significance. I'm asked on occasion why I spend so much time on these ancient texts, ancient scriptures even. It seems to me that in them is a great treasure. Teachings unlike any other. In spite of all the wonderful teachers there are nowadays, despite the access we have to a vast richness of spiritual understanding, available both through teachers that are alive and through books and so on. In spite of all that, there's something missing. And this is what's coming across in this sutra. A much more profound teaching, taking us deeper than anything else. That's how it seems to me anyway, and this is what I'm communicating. So how can I be so sure about this? It depends what you mean by spiritual. Spiritual's a rather makeshift word. I know a lot of people who would regard themselves and who many would regard as spiritual. The spirituality, though, has a certain tribal element to it. There are certain things that you'd be expected to go along with if you were spiritual, in terms of politics and lifestyle. Things like multinational corporations are essentially bad. Technology like genetic modification and fracking. Fracking's the latest one, whereby the oil companies send huge pipes to blast the bedrock and to release oil and gas from ancient geological deposits. And this fracking is essentially bad. Though I don't see how it's worse than any other technology which siphons stuff out of the ground. But the point is, spiritual types are not going to be pro-fracking. Spiritual types are more than likely to vote for green parties. So this is a particular understanding of what's meant by spiritual. And it's got absolutely nothing to do what's meant by spiritual in this channel. And the reason is, what is normally understood as spiritual is to do with nurturing the earth, is to do with the environment. That is seen as a spiritual thing. But in this channel, spiritual understanding does not take its cue from the world. Now, this isn't to rubbish what I've been describing as spiritual. If you're part of a spiritual tribe, well, I love you. I love you. And my sympathies are normally in that direction. Although I reserve the right to exercise my own opinion on individual matters. So, I'm not wanting to rubbish that. I'm simply saying that spiritual can mean something else, something independent of the world. Because what I was describing as spiritual really is about a certain set of sensibilities. Our sensibilities are our reaction, our response to the world. And if we're wanting to go really deep and get to the truth of the situation, we question this. We question the enslavement to our sensibilities, the enslavement to our moods, the enslavement to our ups and downs. In this channel, spirituality is about going beyond this, going very, very beyond this. This is the option we have. I'm not trying to sell anything here. If that doesn't fit your understanding of spirituality, that's fine. You can go off and be spiritual in other ways. But here, and I suspect it's somewhat exclusive, spirituality is something not determined by the world. Spirituality is not determined by the world. So I might be wrong. Perhaps there are other teachings, there are other teachers which take this line, although I don't think they take it as comprehensively as it's presented here. Because even if they agree with that statement that spirituality is not determined by the world, they'll still buy into the idea that there's an external world out there being experienced through the senses by an individual here. That needs to be dismantled for true spirituality. That understanding needs to be liberated from for true spirituality. And this is what the next few verses are about. What I've been criticizing or exploring, I suppose, about what is meant by spirituality is described in the next few verses as what the philosophers imagine. Let's have a look. Verse 724. Varieties of forms and figures are not produced by the primary elements, but the philosophers declare them to originate from the elements primary and secondary. So varieties of forms and figures. What's this distinction, forms and figures? What's this particular discrimination about? Well, perhaps if there's a Sanskrit scholar tuning in, they can let us know. I'm going to suggest, though, that forms and figures refers to the static and moving aspects of our environment. There are things that are static and there are things moving. The static and the kinetic. In terms of our visual field, this is what we pick up. It's usually the moving things that attract our attention. So I would say the moving things are the figures and the static things are the forms. This is what comprises our environment. And we're being told here that they're not produced by the primary elements. And the primary elements here would have been earth, water, fire and air. But we can easily understand this in terms of the modern understanding of elements, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen and so on. The philosophers declare them to originate from the elements. So the philosophers will say that what is being presented to us, this world, originates from the elements. It's made up of the elements of hydrogen, of helium, carbon, lead, oxygen, whatever. This is the story we're told. And what this has got in common with what I was saying about spirituality is, again, it takes its cue. Philosophy here is taking its cue from the world. And you might think, well, isn't that so? Well, to be honest, we're not concerned with the world. We're concerned with that which is aware of the world. We are concerned with that which is aware of the world. And I suppose we are concerned with this philosophical teaching, with spiritual teachings even. They're a problem when they lead us to forget what is aware of the world. And even somehow contrive a scenario that this awareness is somehow constructed by these elements of the world. I don't know if the absurdity of that understanding is obvious. If I imagine an elephant, if I visualize an elephant, then the understanding, the philosophical understanding that's being described here, would be able to tell me what elements that elephant is composed of. And if I were to imagine a unicorn, visualize it in great detail, then perhaps the philosophers can tell me what elements make up that unicorn, that visualized unicorn. So this is the problem when you say that the world is made up of elements. I am in the world, my thoughts are in the world, therefore my thoughts must be made up of the elements. It's a very bizarre and rarefied understanding, and yet it's the one that we're educated to believe. And it's a good one in the sense that it helps give us control over our environment. But in terms of understanding, appreciating and realizing the nature of awareness, it is very, very limiting. In fact, in terms of these teachings, it is ignorance. Verse 725 is of the same nature. As the philosophers imagine causes other than the unborn, they do not understand, and because of stupidity, they uphold the dualism of being and non-being. So getting back to the question of what the world really consists of, well, the world depends on awareness, on consciousness. If there were no consciousness, there would be no world. And there might be a knee-jerk reaction, but surely there can be a universe with nothing in it. Well, that's a hypothesis created by the mind. Come back to the reality once more of your own awareness. The awareness can only be aware of what is of the nature of awareness. Again, this doesn't make sense. Think of dreams. We could say they're made up of the consciousness of the dreamer. Everything in the dream is of the consciousness of the dreamer. All the things that the dreamer is conscious of are the consciousness of the dreamer. But it's really just consciousness, because the dreamer is also a construction of consciousness. So this is the analogy we've got set before us. Exactly the same thing is going on in the so-called waking state. So in this sense, nothing is born. The philosophers give us stories of birth, stories of where things come from. But they're failing to see that nothing actually comes from anything. And so they uphold the dualism of being and non-being. And this being is me trying to survive in a world which is not me. The belief that this world is not me. This is the dualism of the individual trying to make it in an external world which is being perceived through the mechanism of the senses. So in this channel, we're letting go of the world as made up of elements. We're letting go of all notions of spirituality which take their cue from the world. We're letting go of all our sensibilities, all our moods. As we do so, we come back to the awareness that is hearing this. It is free of our moods and sensibilities, of our ideas, our beliefs, our tribal spirituality. And when it reaches this freedom, it comes back to something like the sun, this great nuclear reactor, constantly exploding into joy.